Hello and welcome to this Deakin University alumni webinar. Sam Johnson here from the Deakin Alumni Engagement team. It's great to have you with us. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands from where I'm broadcasting, the Wadwurrung people of the Kulin Nations, and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. The purpose of this webinar is to warmly welcome you to the Deakin alumni community and to tell you more about what it means to be part of that community and about some of the great benefits that are now open to you. Firstly, I'd like to sincerely congratulate you on completing your studies at Deakin. We recognise the dedication it has taken to reach this important milestone. We're very proud of your accomplishments and hope that you are too. We are delighted to welcome you into our alumni community, which is made up of over 290,000 graduates around the world. This is the first time we've run a webinar like this for recent graduates, but due to the COVID-19 restrictions impacting Deakin's ability to hold in-person graduations, we hope that this will be an opportunity to celebrate your transition from students to alumni, to answer any questions you may have, and hopefully to provide you with some useful information that will help you in this next step in your journey. In addition to myself, you'll hear from my colleague Gemma and special alumni guests, Susan MacEwan, Marketing Manager and Digital Strategist, and Stephanie Gould-Hardwick, Business Technical Lead at Ford and President of the Engineering Alumni Chapter Committee. Our presentation today will run for about 20 minutes, followed by a Q&A session for you to ask any questions you have. Throughout the presentation, if you think of any questions, please type them into the Q&A box and submit, and we'll get to as many questions as we can during the discussion time at the end. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague Gemma to tell you a little more about what it means to be part of the Deakin alumni community. Over to you, Gemma.
Thanks very much, Sam. So Sam and I are the Alumni Engagement Managers, and I just wanted to share a few details about the alumni community, whether you have just graduated or you may have graduated in the last few years and you're just interested to find out more. So I'll be at the end able to answer any questions during the Q&A time as well. But we just wanted to really introduce ourselves so that you know you can email us at any time as well. So we might get started. So who can join the alumni community? The answer is anyone who has graduated from a degree at Deakin. It's an automatic process. So now that you're involved, that's fantastic. This is a really good way to start, but please do start joining in all the webinars and other sessions that we have available at the moment. We've got chapter committees and things that we'll go through in a minute. A lot of what we're doing is online at the moment for obvious reasons this year. We often have sort of networking and in-person events as well. Hopefully we can get back to that in the future. So all the information about the program is available on the website. It's the Deakin website, and there's an entire alumni section. So I encourage you to have a look through those pages. There's lots of ways to stay connected and hear more about the alumni community. We send regular emails. We have a newsletter that goes out at the end of every month. We have social media channels. So we've got our own Facebook and LinkedIn, and they're separate to the Deakin channels, but you're welcome to stay connected via both. We have a magazine, Deakin Magazine, that's available. That's a printed copy, and we'll show you a page from that a little bit later that our guest, Stephanie, has been in one of the editions. That's available in a hard copy. You can request that from us, or you can also download an e-copy off the website as well. It's full of alumni stories and also research news from Deakin. And we have a lot of professional development opportunities which we share with you via the emails and also via the newsletter. So I really encourage you to read that newsletter at the end of each month. We have a lot of new benefits that come through in the month, and we put those in. There's a lot of free courses available from Deakin at the moment, as well as micro-credentials and limited sort of cost initiatives if you wanted to do a little bit more professional development while you're waiting for the next opportunity in your career. So what's an alumni chapter in a network? So chapter is a more formalised structure. So it's a group of alumni who have formed around a common interest or location or discipline, what you studied at uni. and they have a committee and they organise activities specifically for those alumni. A network's a little bit more broad. It's about it can be about a location. You don't have a committee. It's just a group of people who like to get together. For example, over in Perth, they get together quite regularly. Well, before COVID, now it's more networking online. But we have some chapters overseas, so it's not just Australia, internationally as well. So that's something that you might like to get involved in down the track. A lot of it's on hold at the moment in terms of the live events, but hopefully we can get back to that one day. And how can you give back to Deakin and current students? Well, there's lots of ways. So I do encourage you to look at the web pages and read the newsletter as well for opportunities around this. There will be sort of chapter and network opportunities in future. Sometimes there's some volunteering opportunities. There's also, there's a student emergency assistance fund at the moment that you might be interested in. That's a way to give back to students. Deakin is organising $500 relief packages basically for students who are in need during COVID. And this is something that you are able to donate to if that was of interest to you. We do lots of webinars and seminars and we record them and put them on the Deakin website. So the address is there that you can go and have a look. So there might be a topic that you're interested in from a webinar from 18 months ago. They're all on there, and I do encouraging you while you have some time to look at those videos. Some of the other benefits. So Deakin Talent Career Services, hopefully you're aware of what Deakin Talent is from when you studied at Deakin, but if you're not, and if you haven't accessed that service yet, it is fantastic. It's available to alumni for life and accessed anywhere, anytime, which is fantastic for you. So it might not be something that you anticipated that you needed this year, but they can help you prepare for the next step in your career. They have an extensive suite of digital resources, including a 24/7 employer expo, job application reviews, jobs and internships board, workshops that they conduct online. That's as a graduate. But if you are looking to recruit, if you're in a position where you're looking to hire students or give internship opportunities to students, they also have a careers service with free end-to-end recruitment services to match the right candidate. And they have a website as well, which you're able to access and see both of those opportunities on there. And we also have free library access to Deakin. It's a limited range of resources that are available, but also on the web pages, you'll be able to see the details about that, and you need to apply directly to the library with the link. We also have a postgraduate bursary, which is something, it's a 15% off discount for alumni and their immediate families for starting a new postgraduate degree. You'll need to look at the terms and conditions on the website for more details about that. Now, just a reminder to keep your contact details up to date. This is so that you receive communications that are relevant to your location. And in the same portal, which I'll show you in a moment, you're able to update your interests. So you'll receive emails and different communications that are based on your location and what you've marked as your interests, which might be that it might be business, it might be law, it could be arts, it could be any of those topics. So really what I wanted to do today was give you the opportunity to ask any questions of Sam and I as well at the end, so that we can find out what you're interested in, what you would like more information about. You're always welcome to email us as well, and the email address is on the screen there, deakinalumni@deakin.edu.au. We do get a lot of inquiries about all different things related to the alumni program and staying connected with Deakin afterwards. So this page is just showing how to update your details. So the link is engage.deakin.edu.au. You can go in, and if you haven't been on this page before, you need to sign up as a new user at the bottom of the page, and you'll be able to update your contact details and select your interests in there. So thank you very much for listening to a really quick spiel about the benefits of staying connected to Deakin. We really want you to stay both connected to Deakin, but also to each other. And that's something that we help to facilitate, because your connection to Deakin is for life. And we're always bringing you new opportunities and new benefits that we'll promote through our newsletter and our social channels. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Gemma. Now I'd like to introduce our first alumni guest to tell you a little about her career journey so far and to share some insights into the lessons she has learned since graduating. Susan MacEwan is a senior marketing professional with a curiosity for the intersection of commerce and culture. She has worked with a large range of innovative brands and advertising agencies in New York, London, and Melbourne, with businesses such as Essop, L'Oréal Paris, Target, and Harper's Bazaar. Most recently at Essop as Digital Marketing Manager, Susan led all global efforts, seeing the business through a period of extraordinary growth and digital transformation. With an appreciation for creativity in business contexts, she seeks to create meaningful value for brands, customers, and communities. Susan holds a Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Arts from Deakin University and a Master of Global Media Communication from the University of Melbourne. Thank you very much for joining us, Susan. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Sam, and thank you to Deakin for having me today. It's a real pleasure to be back with the university for a moment, although virtually. I guess to give a really brief overview of sort of my journey so far, although Sam's touched on it as well. I think for me, my career journey started off at Deakin, where I was able to complete quite a number of internships. I think in the end I did well over 10, and I basically just reached out to every brand and business that felt interesting to me and just tried to find a way that I could help. I don't think any of them had official internship programs that were advertised. It was really quite an organic reach out from my end. Through that process, I learned a lot around what I liked and didn't like, which was really great. Anyone going through that process, I definitely say to make sure that you have a strong view of what you want to get out of it. Obviously, they're not paid, or if they are paid, it's quite modest. But work hard and be really committed, because you never know where those relationships end up later down the line in your career. So for me, one of those internships actually led to my first role. I started off as an office manager at an ad agency that then grew into an account executive position. And even from there, a co-worker moved to a much bigger agency called McEwen and brought me along with them, which was a really amazing journey for me to get to go through. And from there, I fulfilled, I guess, a bit of a lifelong dream of moving to New York. I just sort of picked up, didn't know anyone at the time living there, had no sort of job prospects, but knew that it was something I really wanted to do, and was lucky enough to find a role at an agency that I really loved called Spring Studios. But after a little while there, I kind of got to the understanding that I knew advertising wasn't going to be for me forever. So after a year, I moved back home, and that's when I studied again. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So anyone who is finding themselves in that position, or later down the line, if you're having a moment in your career, I definitely recommend further study. I think it's a good opportunity to have a bit of a refresh. And so eventually I decided I wanted to move client side into a marketing function. And that first internship opportunity actually led me to a secondment in a marketing team, which was really great. Coincidentally, I then applied for a role at Aesop, and coincidentally the hiring manager was actually based in New York, although the role was in Melbourne, and they knew my previous boss from New York, which was a really loose connection I could never have predicted, but definitely helped me in that journey, and I think building trust really quickly through that interview process. I stayed for 5 years, loved every minute of it. it was a business for me that really aligned with my values. And I would say to anyone out there looking at their career, if you find a business that does align with your values, definitely try to nurture that relationship and work really hard, because I think it's, you know, one way of making a really fulfilling career. And so now I'm running my own business, consulting for marketing for a couple of different clients. Most of them are creatively led, Australian, but want to grow in a global world, which I think is a really exciting space for me. I think that the Australian brand in general is not leveraged enough. I think internationally people, you know, quite enjoy that. So it's an exciting space for me. Sam, maybe I'll jump to the next slide. So I would say, if I were graduating today and starting that journey, I think the first thing is just to remind yourself that every generation has their own challenges. So don't be overwhelmed by the current situation. When you can, you know, tell yourself that. For me, I graduated right after the global financial crisis, which, you know, didn't impact Australia a great deal, but to be honest, marketing and advertising feels every single little ripple in the economy. So it wasn't an abundant time at all. And especially knowing that I wanted to work overseas, it definitely did bring challenges. But, you know, you guys have amazing tools at your fingertips today. Definitely use LinkedIn, have premium, use it to do your research. I think that's the best value that you can get from it. I hate the word networking. I don't use it. It makes me feel really uncomfortable. But I think you can use LinkedIn to build really real connections. You know, find people that you actually do have some connection with, if it's a friend of a friend, or if it's someone that you saw speak at a conference, or for some reason you cross paths with them, reach out to them, mention that, and try to build a real network rather than, you know, people who you have no connection to. There's obviously a few grads out there, so I think whenever there's something really grounding, you're just going to see more value from that. I'd also say to look outside of your location. I think that especially today, location, you know, doesn't really mean anything. I think that, you know, while we can't travel physically, you know, everyone's working virtually, obviously. So, you know, reach out to people, businesses that inspire you, and just try to find a way that you can help them, or learn from them if they're willing to sort of share that. Yeah, I might jump to the next slide. So the next thing I would say is definitely to keep yourself really motivated and inspired. Whenever I start any marketing project, I always start with a brainstorm and, you know, the sky's the limit. What would I do? And I think with career planning, it's important to do the same. It helps you keep a really positive, motivated attitude and to see all the possibilities. I also find this to be really helpful later down the line, or, you know, when you start a new role and you're a couple of years in, being able to look back on what you were thinking at this time when you're filled, you know, you're so educated and you've been exposed to so many new things. That consistency and thought later will really help you be confident in your subsequent career decisions that you'll need to make along the journey. I think, you know, follow what's interesting to you. If there's a company or a business and you don't even really know how you'd fit in or why it's interesting to you, just write those things down. And, you know, what else is connected to that? What's another like-minded business? Is there a similar company on the other side of the world that's doing something? What's different about it? Just, you know, keep that expansive conversation with yourself. And I think, yeah, refer to it often. I definitely find myself reflecting back on notes in the past, and it really helps me stay sort of focused or see the patterns, I guess. Sam, I might jump to the next one. The last thing I'd say is that it definitely takes time. I think that when you're trying to find your perfect role, or even a role, if you're in a position where you just want to get started, every little step that you take, it's such a cliche, but it does get you a bit closer. You always will learn something from it. You'll meet someone, you'll have a new idea that you didn't think of, or you'll discover a job that you never knew existed. And I think just keep doing those small steps and eventually something will open up. It's definitely not a linear journey though. I've had, moments in my journey where I felt that things are going so well and that, I've got this and, I'm really proud of where I'm headed. And then 6 months down the line, complete different headspace. And I think that, knowing that that's really normal and that there's peaks and troughs and that, right now it might be a bit of a different situation to what you predicted, but from this time there will be amazing opportunities. And I think the resilience that you'll learn will be really beneficial as well. And keep yourself engaged. If you find yourself in a job that you do love or that you're happy with, I think it's really easy to sit and stay in your comfort zone. And I would, set yourself reminders, make sure that you're, if it's 6 months or every year, at least asking yourself, where do I want to be going? What else can I learn? Where else can this take me? Because if you don't ask those questions, I think you can equally put yourself at risk. So I think just, once you find what's next, don't stop the learning process. But yeah, that's everything from me.
Thanks so much for such an insightful presentation, Susan. Now I'd like to introduce another alumni guest who will also tell you a little about her career journey and to share some insights into the lessons she has learnt since graduating. Our next presenter is Stephanie Gould-Hardwick, who is an engineer at Ford Motor Company, as well as being president of Deakin's Engineering Alumni Chapter Committee. As a professional with a passion for data visualization and solving complex problems, her professional journey has been about developing emotional resilience, adapting to change, and always keeping the golden why in mind. Stephanie started her career while studying her Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering at Deakin University. Soon after graduating, she found a role at Ford Motor Company in product development and is now in a business and resource planning role, where she is now involved in strategy and business development. Over to you, Stephanie.
Great, thank you, Sam. Welcome everyone, and congratulations on graduating in your area of interest and expertise. Thanks. So I just wanted to go into a little bit about my journey, and I wanted to start from when I graduated Deakin to I suppose reflect on where you are at the moment as well. So I actually found a full-time job before I graduated, and that was through my internship, which Suzanne did touch on as well. The importance of internships is so valuable, and you never know where they can lead you. I graduated Deakin with a Bachelor of Engineering in 2014, and soon after I became an Alumni Chapter Committee member. A little while after that, I joined Ford Motor Company, which is where I am today, as a design verification engineer. It was truly exciting to be part of such a well-known brand name and a global company. So I'm really excited to be part of that industry. Following that, I moved on to becoming the Alumni Chapter Committee Chair. My experience with the Alumni Chapter Committee is really incredibly valuable. To progress from a committee member to committee chair, a shift in responsibility, but I feel like having this experience on my resume really played a part in me gaining the role at Ford Motor Company and really stood out on my resume. Throughout my career at Ford, I've been heavily involved in a number of networking and community initiatives. A real passion for STEAM and STEM at Ford, and reaching out to the community for those who are less favoured or maybe lower socioeconomic incomes, and inspire them to pursue a career as a professional or as an engineer. So something that aligns really closely with my values. I created a partnership with the Smith family, who does a lot of work within schools and lower socioeconomic families to encourage education and continued education. From a career perspective, I've been able to lead a number of projects, particularly a global strategy project, which managed to change the KPIs of a director in North America, which essentially impacted the way the company moves forward. So that was a real highlight, and started to grow my interest in data analytics and data communication. Again, being drawn to the social aspect and networking within my career, I found that I've really found a niche there, and wanted to encourage others. So I joined and created a social group called Next Gen at Ford to really try and expand into that area. And expand others into the opportunities that I've found with networking within the company and external to the company. I was then promoted to a programs analyst role, and that really gave me really sort of aligned with my values and the progress that I had made in the past within Ford Motor Company. I wanted to put in a few little highlights, being featured in the Deakin Magazine, but also I was invited as a International Women's Day panelist with the Geelong Manufacturing Council, and I was also obtained a scholarship in a Women in Leadership program, which I've just completed, which has been so valuable to the next few months and few years of my career going forward. Just on the next slide, please, Sam. So through being actively involved within the Deakin Alumni Committee, I feel like I've been able to build a number of diverse networks. It's enabled me to increase community and connection, professional development and mentorship. I've had access to events and seminars, and I've been able to stay connected to Deakin News. I've talked a little bit about how I see and value networking in professional and personal development. I think it's really important to be aware that it shouldn't just be in your inner circle. Networking is really important when it's diverse, in that you would gain some really valuable information by listening to many different people within your company, external to your company, and external to the industry that you're in. This enables you to add value to your role, and is not just for people that are looking for work. It's really important to use those networks to develop and create really strong relationships. Again, Susan touched on this. It's really important to create really genuine relationships as well. With webinars and events, again, similar to networking, but insightful in that it's a really excellent way to gain communication and stay relevant within the workplace. Through my experience with being connected to Deakin Alumni community, I feel like this has really added to my experience with communicating and teamwork, which has set me above a number of people within my team and given me a lot of trust from my managers. It's also enabled me by using my networks to understand diverse experience and opinions, and enabled me to use and practice empathy and inclusion of team members. This also helps when making decisions. Problem solving and decision making is incredibly important, and practicing this is definitely a value. Furthermore, staying connected to Deakin news and events and seminars enables you to stay really relevant in your career. Things are always moving and changing, and 2020 has been such a important and such a big example of that. By understanding what's happening outside your industry, in the political space, in the technology space, regardless on whether you see yourself as a technical person or not, it's very important to be aware of what's relevant in the world today. Thanks, Sam. You had one more slide, I think.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Stephanie. I've taken the liberty to share the article which was written about you in the most recent Deakin Alumni Magazine as well, which was a great opportunity to highlight your achievements and your ongoing engagement with Deakin. Thank you for everything you do. If you'd like to access the Deakin magazines, you can read them online and can find them on the Deakin Alumni website. We'll start our Q&A session in a moment with Gemma, Stephanie and Susan. So now it's the time for attendees to write any questions you have in the Q&A box on your screen and then submit. We'd love to hear from you. So if I can just get all our panelists to turn their mics back on and we'll get started. We did have a few questions come through during the webinar, which is great. So I'll start with one, I think for you, Gemma, that's come through from Thomas, who asks, how can we engage with other alumni through this, which I assume probably means through the alumni community?
Sure. So I've thought of a few ways. I think, as Susan mentioned in her presentation, I think the social channels are quite an important part of what we're doing at the moment, just in the current climate. We're also looking into things like interactive sort of webinars and breakout rooms and things like that. So that might be down the track, but at the moment, I'd certainly say that the social channels, in time, when we can, we normally do live events as well. We normally have reunions and professional development series events, which is something you can keep an eye out for. I'm not sure when we'd be able to start up that type of thing again. And also keeping an eye on the newsletter for any sort of volunteering opportunities. Like Stephanie's involved in a chapter committee, you can meet people through those sorts of opportunities as well.
Wonderful, thanks. And before I go on to the next one that's come through, and again, please, if you're in the audience, don't be shy. Please send through any questions you've got. There's no such thing as a bad question. While I was hearing the presentations from I had a question for you, Susan, which was, you mentioned the work you do with Australian companies, that you see there's sort of a real appetite for maybe that Australian brand overseas. If we try and look at that from a graduate's perspective, and if people are looking to work overseas, do you have any recommendations for them as to maybe how to sort of present themselves and how to prepare for that move to working internationally?
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, social networks are so powerful. I think if they're sort of, you know, they need to serve you, of course, they can be a bit overwhelming too, but I think just look for common connections. And, you know, LinkedIn is great, but there's other channels too. I actually have grown my professional network through Instagram quite significantly. There's recruiters who are based in London and New York that I follow and speak to on Instagram. They share incredible industry information that I think is probably a little bit ahead of what's happening here at times. So I think just exposing yourself to what's happening in other places, and then through intuition and sort of, yeah, just sort of finding where those connections are. You never know kind of where those connections might lead.
Wonderful. And one for you, Stephanie, and you mentioned a few times when you're talking about your journey with Ford, the sort of the work that you've done in those almost extracurricular type projects within the organisation. So I can see you've gotten a lot out of your relationship with the organisation that isn't necessarily like directly related to the role that you're employed for. Do you have any sort of, I imagine that's been quite rewarding. Do you have any recommendations for people who might be listening to sort of keep their eyes open for those opportunities and that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, first of all, I think it's really important to go into those extracurricular activities really authentically. So thinking about your values and your passions, where you see that you can make a difference and where you see that potentially there's a gap in the company that you can improve, I think that's where you can really add some value. There may already be existing groups and opportunities, and that's really helpful in that you can just jump on board and meet people that have already had some experience in those areas. So again, it's coming back to putting yourself out there and being prepared to grow and learn from those experiences, and don't just look towards your inner circle of what your role, your core day-to-day role gives you. Really look to expand outside of that and what information you can learn from that and bring into your day-to-day role, which is where your professional development and your career growth essentially can happen.
Great, thanks for that. And another question I think for you, Gemma, has come through from Leanne, who asks, who says, the tool I used most with the library is accessing journals. What access do we have to this resource to stay up to date on research? And I assume that means now as alumni.
It's a limited range of journals, so I'm not sure of the specifics over which ones are available and not available. So if you sign up for the free library access and contact the library, that's the best way to check exactly which ones are available to you.
Thanks, Gemma. And there was another question here relating to alumni chapters. So Karen asks, is there a general or IT chapter?
Oh, I can answer that one too.
Thanks, Gemma.
That's all right. So the answer is not at the moment. It depends as well whether a group of alumni sort of get together and make it happen too. It's probably not the right time to be launching a new chapter at the moment, but certainly sort of keep an eye out in the future as things get back to a new normal with all those kind of opportunities.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd add to that I think the LinkedIn group that we have for alumni, can act as a bit of a central point for information and for people to sort of stay connected to, and that there are some geographical based LinkedIn groups as well, more specifically for our international alumni. But please do feel free to email us on our shared email address, which we'll share again at the end, if you'd like to sort of continue that conversation too. Thank you for your question. Now we'll go back to our alumni guests with this question. So we have one question's come in asking, could you please provide advice on how to get better at networking as a graduate? And Susan, I know you don't love the word, but I'm going to throw to you to start with, and then we'll hear your thoughts too, Stephanie, afterwards.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess just to sort of preface the reason why I don't like the word is because I think it can be really intimidating and also can feel really unnatural. I would say, again, just start with those genuine connections that you do have. Try and think of, personally, what I do is on LinkedIn, I will look up a company that I am interested in, and then there's a section where you can click on people, and it basically lists everyone that currently works there. And I just scroll through all of them until I find a couple of people that I either am surprised to discover I know them, or they might have a title that is really interesting to me, and so I'll just go onto their profile and have a bit of a look. And I think that's one thing as well. You know, you're looking for a job, so don't be afraid of letting people know that. I think on LinkedIn, everyone gets freaked out that they can, obviously people get a notification if you've looked at their profile, but I think that's a good thing if you're trying to build your reputation. It's a really subtle way to be seen. And then in the real world, I think, you know, I'm definitely not one for at seminars, you know, going around and handing out my business card and just sort of chatting to people. But I think, I mean, if you are, that's amazing. I think it takes a really confident, extroverted person to feel comfortable doing that. And that's good. But I think a lot of people don't, in which case, you know, going to events and things, and as Stephanie, you know, spoke to, often outside of your industry as well, but there might be a loose connection. And, you know, normally if it's a big room with a few hundred people in it, there'll probably be someone that you know. And in those circumstances, it's actually kind of okay to, you know, go and chat to them, and they might be someone you know 100 years ago, and in a normal situation you might not even say hi. But I think those situations allow for that contrived sort of interaction a little bit. But yeah, just start with what feels comfortable, really.
Great. And Stephanie, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think so. Advice for a graduate would be, if you are intimidated in sort of going out at a seminar where there's a lot of people, or handing out your business card, as Susan mentioned, which I'm also quite intimidated by that. Find connections that you do have, whether it's within your class or a friendship you have, and go with a small group of people, and talk about how you can engage others outside of that group is obviously very important. Be aware of relevant topics as well. So listen to seminars and webinars that really interest you and think that guide you down the line of work that you want to go. I think is potentially really helpful. And again, volunteering. Say that you're interested in helping out with a group or a chapter. Volunteering something that everybody is more than happy to welcome you in. So I think putting your hand up and saying I'm interested in giving my time to grow this chapter or this committee, I think that's, you know, people will welcome you in with open arms, and you'll gain natural connections from doing something like that.
Thank you very much. And just to add as well, with the networking side of things, this might sound a little strange, but I feel like it's good to think of job interviews as a networking opportunity, in that even if you aren't successful in a job interview, you've met 3, maybe more key people from that organization who it's really important to stay in touch with, get the feedback that you can from that, develop that relationship, and you may find that they contact you down the line when a job comes up that's really suited to your skill sets. So I think that's worth keeping in mind too, and where possible, trying to really enjoy those opportunities to share your experiences and that kind of thing. So another question for our panelists, and it extends on from the networking conversation, to ask if you've had a mentor who's helped you to get where you are today, and maybe just to talk a little about the importance of finding and nurturing those mentoring-mentee relationships. Susan, would you like to kick us off on that one?
Yeah, I think kind of probably, yeah, quite similar to networking. I also, maybe I just have some social issues. I also find, you know, formal mentor programs or mentor relationships, also, I've never had one. I've never approached someone and asked them to be my mentor, but I definitely have people in my career and, you know, even just, I guess, in my social network too, that I really look up to and that have given me amazing advice. And that I think for me, it's a much more organic process. I think it definitely is helpful to, you know, again, every 6 months, year, what have you, ask yourself, who in your world do you admire, and just to actively ask them questions, you know, what would you do if you were in my position, and just to kind of nurture that dialogue, and invite that advice. The other one, which also probably sounds a bit strange, but I think having kind of imaginary mentors can help, like people who you look to in the media, who you know, never met, that are people, you know, who might live overseas or be a CEO or, you know, have this huge role. There's definitely people that I follow in terms of seeing and just keeping an eye on what they do career-wise. And honestly, like, I ask myself every now and then, what sort of thing would they do? What a person that I admire, or, you know, the person that I'd want to be in 10 years time, how would I tell myself to behave, or what decision would I tell myself to do? And it kind of sounds weird, but it does just sort of invite a different perspective into your mind, which I think when you're, you know, have a bit of a conflict or you feel a bit stuck, can just open up that imagination a little bit more.
Wonderful, thanks. And Stephanie, I'll give you a chance to sort of answer that question as well if you'd like in a second. But firstly, if it's okay, I'll put you on the spot and to say, if you look back with what you've learned in your career to date, and look back to the time when you were graduating, are there any lessons you've learned that you really wish that you knew at that time and could have had in your mind moving away from your time at Deakin?
I think putting myself out there a little bit more, and as to your comment previously about interviews, sort of don't be disgruntled if you aren't successful in an interview, because I think that's where I gained the confidence to ask the right sort of questions, intriguing questions, and find interesting answers, is through the interview process. And I was able to transfer what I learned in those into a more extroverted situation where I wasn't generally as comfortable. So I wish I could tell myself that just see that as a more positive thing, and and really value the aspect of learning from those situations. And I suppose learning a little bit from, I guess you could say, learning from failures, and trying to, I suppose, failing early really helps you grow really a lot quicker, because you learn from those mistakes, and you always learn from those situations. So that's what I would probably wish I had known when I was first a graduate. It took me a little while and a few experiences to figure that out myself.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great things to keep in mind. And I think, yeah, it takes time to learn these lessons, but I think if these are things that people can keep in mind moving away from their studies, and that's wonderful. Just quickly, for each of our guests, it'd be great to hear maybe a little bit about your future goals, your sort of 5-year goals, and where you hope to be. Maybe next time we have you back for one of these webinars. Would you like to start, Stephanie, with that one?
Yeah, so I'm really hoping to be in a position of leadership. People are really important to me, and I love working with teams and identifying someone's strengths and encouraging them to match their weaknesses with another's strength, and work as a cohesive team. So I hope that I'm able to reach that sort of position in 5 years' time. That would be really excellent. Yeah, was that your question? Did I answer that?
No, that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And all the best with the goals. I'm sure you'll get there. And Susan, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think also I'd really love to continue to grow. I think I'm in a bit of a journey at the moment doing my own sort of thing where, you know, it could go many different ways. But I think for me, hopefully in 5 years' time, the world looks a little different to what it does today. And for me, I think having a global network and working in that space, and I think helping Australia be a bit more of a leader in the marketing and branding space would be something that I'd love to be a part of.
Great. So thank you to all our panel members. I think that's all the time we've got for with the Q&A, but I've got a few more slides to get through to give you a bit more information. As Gemma mentioned, we'd love to stay in touch with you. Please make sure we have your current contact information for you so we can invite you to relevant events and more. You can also follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn and check out our YouTube channel for webinar recordings and other great content. You can submit any feedback about today's webinar to deakinalumni@deakin.edu.au. We'd love to hear from you. We hope this has been a useful session for you, and once again, a heartfelt congratulations to you for graduating. We look forward to staying in touch with you. Thank you once again to our presenters, and thanks to you for participating in this webinar. Goodbye for now.